All right, well, we'll let a few more people jump in here, and then we'll kind of get rolling. Adam, thank you for joining us this week, man.
I'm here for the party. As long as it's exciting, I'm all good for it. So,
well, we'll keep it exciting for you. Well, hey guys, Katie, how are you? Where are you calling in from?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Woohoo! Whoop whoop! I'm like an hour and a half from you. So, do you know where Wilson, North Carolina is?
Up in the mountains, right?
Close. Kind of. It's on the East Coast. It's south of Raleigh.
Oh, okay. I never go that direction.
Yeah, neither does anybody else. That's where I'm from, is Wilson. We got good barbecue over there. That's it. That's all we got.
That's arguable anywhere in North Carolina.
No, that's true. That's true. Thad, what's up, man? Welcome.
Hey, Carl. Appreciate it, man. It's my first time to join y'all.
Yeah. Now, you're in the SC.
I'm in the SC, man. Hartsville.
Yeah, baby. Awesome. John Mark, what's up, man? Hey, Jennifer. All right, well, we'll kind of get rolling as people jump in here, and we'll get rolling. So for new people joining us, this is a kind of a roundtable discussion of just learning from each other, okay? So Adam and I and Steve and Justin, we're all going to kind of lead the conversation along, but these are really designed for you to, talk to each other and us to hang out. So, in fact, like John, Mark, Dave, why don't you guys jump in here and just maybe say one or two things that you guys have taken away from the roundtables these last few weeks? Dave, you want to go first?
I'll jump in here. No, this has been really good just to kind of like, we're all trying to figure out how to do all this and become experts in fields that we didn't realize that we needed to be experts in. And it's been good just to really focus on like the importance of your website and making sure that has all the information that you need, clearly communicating like, how you're doing Sunday schools and youth events and all that kind of stuff. And just some of the practical things about like how to do our services. And I'm a big believer in that. We can't just throw up a camera and keep doing what we're doing. But then the next question is like, okay, so what do we do that's different? What's going to resonate with people that are sitting in their pajamas in their living room? And so it's been good to really kind of think on those things and make our online services the best they can be.
Yeah. John Mark, what about you, man? From the alleyway.
Yeah. I decided to get fancy this week. For me, I am a technical director, so a lot of things that I get questions asked are the tech questions, and from my ministry staff and executive ministers. So this has been a great resource for me because I get to hear from a lot of different areas of the church, and then relay that information back from a lot of you guys that have been doing communications or live streaming for longer than we have. So it's been good.
Awesome. Well, let me pray for us as we get started here, and then we'll kind of jump into some topics. Lord Jesus, thank you so much for, Lord, this group of people. Thank you for the technology that we can get together and just share ideas and have conversation with each other. And Lord, I want to pray for wisdom, especially as a lot of churches are kind of, what does reopening look like? Just wisdom for leadership in churches to know when to make decisions, what decisions to make, and all that. So I pray for wisdom for our church leadership throughout the country. And Lord, I pray that you bless our conversation today. We love you so much. In your name I pray. Amen. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and put, a lot of you guys are jumping in. And as you jump in, we're going to put I know we're giving away a free mini movie. So Steve, if you'll put the code to that and a link to that in the chat. But Steve will put it in there, but it's Roundtable 42720. So today's date, Roundtable 42720. And that's our We Are the Church mini movie. And that's it's going crazy on Worship House. In fact, some of the guys that have been in the Roundtable have been were involved in the making of that video. So we'll put a link to where to get it, and then Steve's put that code in there. So we'll try to update that throughout the Zoom call so people can pick that up. But feel free to go grab that, use it for free, use it in your churches. We don't require any type of additional web licensing or anything like that. So feel free to go pick that up. We threw that out as kind of a freebie and a thank you to you guys. So, all right. So first topic is going to be reopening. So we kind of ended with that last week a little bit. So I'd love to hear from you guys about your church leadership. What have you guys talked about in the last week, and what has been some of the maybe decisions that you guys have made, or some things that you have talked about? Jordan, you want to kick us off?
Sure. As far as reopening goes, we honestly are just kind of wait and see. Like, our stay-at-home orders are till I think May 8th, and I wouldn't be surprised if those are extended in Pennsylvania. So it's kind of wait and see at this point. We're just trying to focus on driving small groups and the online experience for now. So we haven't even really started. I mean, we talk about hypotheticals, but it's like kind of wait and see. So
What about some of you other guys? What have you talked about with your leadership?
We're using this time to kind of ramp production stuff, which is nice. They kind of opened the budget to buy a bunch of new equipment, so we're going to be in the building a lot, getting stuff kind of hyped up for when we do get back in there. Our Lake campus did a drive-in service last weekend. My campus is still doing pre-recorded, but I just ordered a second FM radio transponder, legal or not, I'm not sure, but I did order one. And I think both campuses are going to shift to that for probably a month. And then if the governor continues to open stuff up, we'll probably be social distancing back into the buildings. So,
Thad, what about you guys in South Carolina? Are we reopening yet in your church?
Not yet. Let's see. Some of the local businesses here, I think, are going to be opening up this week. But churches are still, not being allowed to open up. We're doing all online. We're doing pre-recorded and then using Facebook Premiere. And then last week we really started trying to be a little bit more intentional about just being more present online. My pastor and myself, we've done some Facebook Live stuff with worship and just some teaching and things like that. Just trying to be available, trying to be present.
Who else?
Yeah, we're still down in New Orleans, so we're still trying to figure out what our state and city are going to do, because technically our stay-at-home order for New Orleans is through the 13th. I think from what I heard this morning, the governor is going to do a press conference today based on some of the White House and national regulations they're putting out and how that's going to apply to us down here. And so we are kind of preparing. We started the initial conversation last Tuesday in our team meeting. We're kind of preparing right now that we probably won't really have much in person throughout the summer, even because even like the biggest thing for us that we're talking about is, even if 50 people can come back, like how do we handle that? Because it got so bad down here, a lot of people are nervous. So do we encourage people, or do we just keep doing what we're doing? Do we run 6 gatherings on a Sunday? None of us really want to do that. So so it'll be interesting to see. I think we're going to have more conversation tomorrow, but some of that's going to be based on what our state and city officials decide based on the national stuff.
I know one thing that we talked about last week is I've kind of been a little bit against drive-in church, or I was 3-4 weeks ago. I'm almost thinking that, I said this last week, that drive-in church might be a step in the reopening process. So like a drive-in, and then like maybe multiple services during the day with less people, or maybe even like it might have been Dan, you might have mentioned this last week, like a ticketed live stream where you have a small number of people in your room while you live stream to kind of walk through that. Was that you, Dan?
Yeah, that's the more I think about that, and the more I talk to people from our church, I think that's probably the direction that we're going to go when the time comes, because it limits the number of people in one room, but it also allows us to not have to worry about the kind of the downer of less energy in the room, because we're still going to be focused on that online platform. And so we feel like that's a way to, and that also keeps us from having to do the 6 services with 50 people. The other thing that it protects against is it protects us against kids and nursery needs, because families with kids can just say, well, I'm just going to stay home, and it won't be any different for them.
Let me ask this question.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm just curious so in marketing world, we talk a lot about multi-screening. And the reality is that when somebody's watching Netflix, they're also probably on their phone, right? So if you see things like, America's Got Talent, where they give you a hashtag and they give you a voting system and you could download the app, they know you're probably dual screening or multi-screening, but they're trying to engage you while that's happening. I'm wondering if anybody is working on multi-streaming or multi-screening, where at a drive-in church, we're obviously watching the speaker at the front, or we're watching the worship team at the front, but at the same time, we're streaming like media content, or we're streaming the scriptures to a Facebook Live so people can watch on their phone. So they're watching your pastor speak. They're streaming, on their phone so they could see the notes, so they could see the media content. Is anybody working on a strategy like that to continue to integrate media into, people sitting in their cars staring at somebody talking through a PA system or an FM transmitter?
So we're not currently doing a drive-in, but this would apply to that. We are actually doing a multi-screen engagement strategy. Even going forward, that's kind of our plan, which is they're usually watching on their television in their living room, but they're engaging on their phone, whether it be through YouVersion or Facebook Messenger or chat programs.
So I was talking with Aaron Hart from he's at City View Bible Church in Texas. He might be watching us on Facebook Live. But one thing that they've done is create a landing page that's like your church /Sunday online. That is a whole page of resources. So your sermon notes that are both printable and digital, to give people options there, as well as like a kids activity page, other resources, so that everything lives on that page. Have any of you guys done that? What success have you seen from it? Jordan, have you guys done anything like that?
We just drive everyone to the homepage of our website. It has all the call to actions out of the weekend. So there's like very clear like buttons, like you want to get in a small group, there are buttons right there. Like we just point everyone to the homepage of our website, basically.
Cool.
Yeah, which I think even further is the case that like social streaming's great and it's a great secondary thing, but it's great to be streaming on your website because all of your stuff lives there.
Yeah, you can get them over to resources really quickly. All right, Adam, do you want to move us into, let's talk about taking our worship experience past Sunday. So how do we go beyond the worship experience? You want to get us started there?
Sure. Actually, I was thinking maybe we jump ahead because we're on the topic of reopening. And one of the things that I'm concerned about with churches that I've worked with and churches that I've talked with is getting your staff and your leadership on the same page about how you communicate, whether you're opening, whether you're not. Why are we reopening if the church down the road isn't? Why are we not opening if the church down the road is? And I would guess that radio stations, newspapers, mommy bloggers, who knows, are probably going to be asking those questions of your church. Why did you make the decision you made? So what we don't want is like somebody says, oh yeah, the pastor's mom got sick from this, so we're not reopening. And somebody else says, no, we're doing it for the health of the community. And then there's conflicting stories. So how are you working with your church to get everybody on the same page with the same information about whether you're opening or whether you're waiting? Is it all right if we jump ahead there, Carl?
Absolutely.
So I can speak to that. We've done a couple of things. First of all, we're consistently through email just giving them a weekly update about where we are and what we're doing, and we're finding that's getting a good bit of traction. We also do each week we do a staff update where it's really our staff on Zoom, and we record that and put that out. We don't live stream it, but we put that out as a premiere later on Facebook, where we do some conversations. Maybe it's about our church, but one particular we specifically said, and I sent it out. Not only do we premiere it on Facebook, we also said, hey, you need to go watch this, because we just had a conversation together about what is happening within our church and within our community. We talked about honestly, the end of that conversation was, we don't know, because we don't at this point, but we wanted our church to see that we were struggling through that and kind of walking through it, so that there was a real clear picture. And as we get closer, we're talking about maybe a couple of staff members doing kind of a town hall meeting online, whether that's a Facebook thing where people can ask questions, we'll respond to those questions. That way it's a real clear, because we're a larger church in our area, so there are going to be some churches that start before we do, without question.
Anybody else?
I'll jump in here. So we, at the very beginning of all of this, we kind of put together a task force within our church, a couple of industry leaders and medical people and all that. And we felt pressured to do that at the very beginning, because at the beginning we were trying to figure out, this is even going to be a big deal, but we've got enough people that are like asking questions. Let's put together a team and go from there. That team has actually been super valuable. And so, we've kind of let them drive the decisions on what we're going to do with, meeting together, when we're going to start and all that. And just, one of the guys is connected with our denomination's state group. So he's got various information. You got medical people that have seen various things. And so they've been driving all these conversations. And then I think I stole this from Brentwood. We just had a page right at the very beginning that we started kind of training people that, hey, there's a yellow button on our website that has this page, and we update it. We've probably updated it, 1 or 2 times a week with, at the very beginning was like, hey, we're going to meet, but we're not going to have coffee, or we're not going to do our handshake. And then that turned into, actually, we're not going to meet. And then it kept going from there. And now I'm in a state here in Oklahoma where the government is being pretty aggressive about getting things back to get going and reopening, and churches have been allowed, if they want to open this weekend. And so obviously we had people asking the question, well, is that us? And so we've been using that website. We've kind of spent the last couple of weeks really training people that that's where you go if you want information about our Sunday school classes, or how to connect with a small group, or what's the next step for our church, and explaining all that. That web page has been pretty valuable. And then our pastor has been really good about getting on like Facebook Live and things like that. And he's generally really good, even before all this, about getting on. So it's our people are used to seeing their pastor on our Facebook page doing Facebook Lives and things like that, and kind of has a nice intimate feel in terms of like, I'm hanging out with the pastor, and here's where we're going, what we're struggling with, things like that. And we've kind of like looked at this as a standpoint of, instead of focusing on, hey, when's the next time we can meet together in person? Because that's probably going to be, it's gonna be a long time probably before we actually have our in-person gatherings. But we're looking into like, well, maybe Sunday school gets to meet together, or maybe families get together and meet in their homes. And so instead of one family watching the TV, now it's like 4 families watching the TV, and maybe opening up that way. So that's kind of how we've been communicating and what we've been doing here in Oklahoma.
So on that note, Dave, thank you. We talked about doing Facebook Live during the week and keeping people connected during the week. We've heard some churches who are kind of, running out of content, so to speak. We're at the point where like, how many times can I repost, my Vimeo link to the sermon? And then we have other churches who are, creating content and, you know, creating lots of content, and a little bit overwhelmed with the amount of content that there is to create. I'm curious to hear from your church. Are you kind of at that point where you've hit that wall on this just feels redundant, or are you at the point where you are kind of, you know, feeling overworked, overwhelmed because of so much potential and figuring out which one to tackle? I'd love to hear from you, and how have you kind of found a balance between, I've got so much time, I've got so many ideas, I've got, you know, all I have time is to produce content, versus like, I've already posted what's your favorite flavor of ice cream 13 times this month to create engagement, and I've run out of ideas. Where's your church at? Give us some ideas on how you found that balance. John Mark, I saw your hand up. How about you jump in on that one?
Yeah, we're getting feedback from our teachers, specifically, that families and students are becoming a little bit screen fatigued, which is going to probably change in a week or two when everybody's out of school. And so we've actually scaled back our video content to only one video devotion in the morning at 8:00 that we send out live. That's created by the pastor, so there's no tech involved in that. And then we're doing our regular image post updates are still rolling out, probably one a day, unless there's some special either live session or something happening that evening. We'll send a couple extra reminders or an app push. But we've really tried to kind of, at first it was like over communicate, which is great, but now people are like, hey, I know what you guys are doing on Sunday now. It's part of my new routine to sit down at home. I don't need to be reminded of this, because I'm kind of getting a little bit tired of watching the screen all the time. I haven't. So we're kind of adjusting based on some of our feedback.
Yeah, and I've seen a pretty cool thing where I saw a couple of ministries that were still streaming this like announcement, but it was the pastor saying like, hey, today we are encouraging guys to get out in your backyard, like get your kids out there. And I saw some churches doing like little backyard scavenger hunts, like find a squirrel. I mean, you know, whatever it may be, but they're still giving the announcement via video, but it's not like an hour, you know, devotional. They're giving them activities to do, encouraging them to do stuff like take your Bible outside this afternoon and read through, you know, John 1 through whatever, and take your kids outside and do that with them. So encouraging people to get outside and get off the screens also.
Hey, Jeff Moss, are you still doing students? Have you guys have any ideas on that topic as it relates to students?
Zoom was a fad for some of my students, and they were all excited about it. And then what happened? We were doing the free version, and then finally, you know, if I ever wrote a book, it'd be called "Balling on a Budget," because I'm at a church that's pretty small and just doing what I can. But one of the things that changed is when we did the paid version and we started doing the small groups and equipping our small group leaders to be the ones to text the students instead of sending out these big blasts and trying to recruit. And like, it's been a challenge because of two things. They schoolwork, and then now that things are starting to open back up here in South Carolina, down here I'm in Moncks Corner, South Carolina. So if you've ever heard of it, points. And two, it's a bonus just because there's the outdoor capital of South Carolina. I mean, lakes, woods, everywhere. So the people that are outdoors and they're spending time with family. So like, I can't argue with that. I can't be like, why didn't you come to the youth group? Why didn't you come to the small group? Well, because I was hanging out with my parents. That's not necessarily a bad thing. And so that's kind of what we've been doing. But we've been doing live worship. We've been recording. Two of my seniors are stepping up. One of them preached this past Sunday, and man, for a senior, and it was his first time ever speaking, I was amazed. He did a fantastic job. Of course, his dad's our worship pastor, and so we were working together with him for over a month for that. And so just finding different faces to put on instead of the redundancy of it's the three pastors, it's us three pastors, just trying to put more faces up of leaders and small group leaders. And we do our children's ministry too. If you guys do Go curriculum, they do a online church, and like it is phenomenal. All I do is press play and kind of host it and let my leaders be there to do a small group with the kids, and that's been really successful too.
Have you done the Bolt VBS? Have you seen their Bolt VBS yet?
We're looking at it. We do our summer is huge, and so that's kind of where we're in talks right now. We're doing a summer camp with 6 different churches, and it's scheduled for the last week of June. But we're going to have a call tomorrow, and I'm pretty sure we're going to be like, we just need to either postpone it or do something different. And that Bolt VBS is going to be something that youth groups can do in their neighborhoods with other kids and things like that. So I think that's a fantastic resource and timely too.
We do all their design and video work, and it's Dave and Mindy Roush. It's a couple that leads that group, and they are absolutely incredible. The Muglio Go curriculum for kids, really, really, really good stuff. All right, good point. Good point, Jeff. All right, so let's kind of get back into taking our experience throughout the week. I know we kind of hit on, devotions and stuff during the week. Adam, do you have any thoughts on maybe some more ideas or some things that we can do to take our experience beyond Sunday?
I've always got ideas, but what I'm really curious is on for the churches who have been intentional with that and seen some great results. I would really love to hear your thoughts on taking your experience beyond Sunday.
I can step in there. So we've really, as a church, decided to de-emphasize Sundays, and that sounds terrible, especially in a Making Sundays Happen Zoom call. But we really feel that this is an opportunity for us to explore what it's like to engage people throughout the week, not just on Sunday. So we do our online experience. But we've been doing daily devos. That's a massive one. And then we've also been doing on Wednesdays mental health discussions. So we've been bringing in experts, psychologists, and therapists to really navigate some of the discussions that people are dealing with. So whether it's anxiety or depression or addiction is at an all-time high right now. There's physical, emotional, and mental abuse, and so how do we navigate those things as believers, but also how do we speak hope into people's situations? And parents are frustrated with their kids; they're surrounded with them, nonstop, and so how do we speak hope into that? And so that's been massively popular. We've gotten a lot of traction from that.
I also want to add something that apart from our weekly services, so what we're doing is like something what he said about that, like on a very first week after we locked down, one of a church believer was a COVID victim, so they recovered from the COVID. So we had a panel discussion with her, like how she went through. The entire family was a positive, COVID positive. So we asked them like, how did they felt when they then how did you feel that when the churches pray for you, like then they give us the hope, like, don't be panic if something happened, like what are the procedures and how can you come out of it? And the following week we from our church, the frontline workers, the doctors and nurses, what is the impact on the COVID. And even the last week, we had a real talk with the moms, like, how you can manage the kids, like in the four walls, the entire family, the domestic violence, a lot of things are coming up. So how we can, get on with it. And this particular week, like we are getting one of our corporate speaker to throw some lights on how we can engage the, congregation during the lockdown period, during this complete lockdown period, like what are the things that you can do. So this is a way that, we are engaging our congregation apart from our weekly live stream.
So here's a question that's actually a suggestion phrased like a question. I would love to hear from somebody who is taking their live stream on Sunday and then chopping it into pieces and repurposing it, whether that's your worship, whether that's, your devotions, whether that's a little segment. Has anybody seen any traction or gotten any traction in repurposing their weekend service content rather than just creating new content, or maybe some combination of both? but who's seeing success in repurposing what you already created?
Yeah, we did for Easter, actually. We normally have a really large Easter service where both campuses get together at this big farm, and the worship last year was really great. So our Harmony campus actually chopped up that sermon Easter service from last year and just used that music again for our pre-recorded service for this year. So I've seen that. And I think there's gonna be a lot of repurposing in the future for this stuff because we're recording the music in such cool places. We did it at my parents' farm. One week we did it in the church atrium, like right when you walk in last week. So we've got some really cool locations. So I see us using this stuff a ton going forward. I haven't had a lot of opportunity yet, but I see it happening.
I'm in talks right now. Oh, sorry. I'm in talks right now with our music staff and repurposing some of the recordings that they have done, and thinking about more of letting the congregation in on what happens behind the scenes. And so we'll take their some music pieces that we've recorded and repost those, but give them more of like a behind the scenes look. Just trying to like we said, struggle with that content creation, but trying to create more content and use what we've got.
That is a really neat idea. So tell me how you are you guys creating a separate behind the scenes video? Is it just your iPhone? Tell me what's in that and how you're putting it together.
Still in talks with them. It's so my idea for it would be a video, just a quick, like, maybe their struggles in coming together and trying to figure it out and we had a 40-person choir come together and sing Hallelujah for Easter. So maybe I'm trying to get them to maybe record their struggles with that and their wins with that and how that went. And then, of course, repost that because that video in itself is still getting shared and still getting views. So my hopes is to have like a little recording and then introduce the video again. And here again, for your enjoyment, is our Hallelujah choir. That's my hopes for it.
There's a church here. There's a church here in Ohio that I work with that has had a lot of success this week with a blooper reel that they put together from all their bad takes, and it's gotten more traction and attention and comments and likes and things like that on Facebook than their regular stuff. Just another way to kind of keep people engaged. And then I'm also working with a church in Pennsylvania that was celebrating their 1-year anniversary as a church. They're a church start. And so we put together a kind of a celebration of what's happened in the last year, but that will now become their welcome video on their website. And it's just a way for people to get to know them. So then the last thing is this church has been taking like a sermon point or a really kind of sticky idea and taking a little 2-minute clip out of the sermon and putting a track with it, maybe having some graphics and quotes. And, that stuff is really shareable. Nobody's going to watch your entire worship service on Tuesday or Thursday or whatever, but having like TED Talk style moments that you repurpose from your worship can be very valuable.
Yeah, the highest engagement we've had on anything we've done, more than our sermons or anything, was our senior pastor while we were recording our worship set last Thursday, was just outside like, I'm so thankful for our volunteers. And then he was like filming with his phone, just going to Facebook Live, the us like actually recording it. And people, I don't know what it was. It blew up. Like everyone was logging on. We had like 400 or 500 people watching at once, which is more than our sermons. So that was kind of cool. Yeah, that behind the scenes thing, Nikki, is awesome. That's a really good idea.
I think that
connect with that authenticity. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I think authenticity right now matters more than slick. And the more you give people an opportunity to kind of see real, I mean, again, we talked about this in other conversations, but you watch what's happening on the Tonight Show or even Saturday Night Live, which did a much better job this time than the last. Having kind of those moments that aren't quite as polished I think is really attractive right now for folks on the outside.
So if Jimmy Fallon, who has a multi-million-dollar budget, can go live from his living room while his kids are coloring next to him, or whatever that is, or pick whoever, I think we can all relax a little on the polish. But I'm curious if you've seen any balance in your churches between content that you produce and polish versus content where you hit the live button and go live. I have my ideas of what that probably looks like, but I'm wondering if anybody has the actual numbers, not just me anecdotally guessing, versus of the comparison between I went live and I did my thing and my hair was a mess, or my my background's not perfect, versus produced content.
I can step in here, Adam. One thing we did, like probably starting a couple of weeks ago, was we just kind of identified some local businesses. We're in a small town. And we identified some local businesses, and we took lunches to like the workers of these, like these essential workers. So like the fire department, the drugstore, just some local business. We went to some clinics, and so we partnered with a coffee shop that actually made all these lunches, and so so we fed. I think we fed maybe, I don't know how many people. We did like 15 businesses, and then we also did a similar thing with some of our senior adults. And so then we put all of our footage that we got from that, we put it into a kind of a little video, and we put that into the service. And then we also posted that as kind of a standalone last night. Well, anyway, that service was yesterday, and that's the most engagement we've had on a Facebook premiere broadcast. Was that service with that, food delivery piece in there. And so I think there was something about that really resonated with people. And then also, some of the folks that were actually doing the food delivery from our church, they were saying like they've never experienced like being the body of Christ like this. Like they were just like, this was like life-changing for them, I think. And so I was really surprised and encouraged just to see that kind of fruit from that.
Adam, have you seen a difference? Like I've kind of suggested doing a pre-recorded simulated live when it comes to your worship experience. Is that reverse when it comes to social media? Do you see more engagement with live than pre-recorded stuff on social?
Yeah, I think there's an authenticity factor. And so what I'm thinking, so when I see those videos of like mom or dad comes home from Afghanistan in their army fatigue and like surprises their kid at school or something, it makes my eyes sweat. And it's a problem I have. I'm trying to get over it. But I don't often find like polished content with actors. I don't get emotional when I'm watching TV shows that have been set up and produced. That's me personally. But I think there is kind of this human factor of like, I hit record on my phone and I went live. I don't see Facebook, preferring a live video to a premiered video. I'm not seeing the facts or the analytics to show there's a difference there. But what I am seeing is that when you're creating more authentic, like on the fly content, people are more likely to engage with it, like comment or share it, compared to a produced piece of content. And I'm all about produced content, but what I want to do, or what I'm hoping this piece of the discussion gives us, is kind of release the pressure that we have to create really polished content all the time, and give the freedom and the opportunity to create authentic content. And I would love to hear if Thad, that was a really cool idea. Thank you for sharing that. Does anybody else have ideas in that same vein that we might be able to adopt for our churches?
I'll speak on that if I can. we've really been pushing for user-generated content. And so right before, because I'm the only video person on staff, I can't support a church of 1,000 who everybody wants a video. You know, even the 10 staff members that come and ask for videos, there's no way I could do that. And so the week before Easter, we started just a small campaign that's called Show Hope E-Town. And we did make one produced video that explained what we wanted to do. And then we said, put chalk on your driveway, use the hashtag, show us videos, send us videos, post it online of what you guys are doing to show hope in your neighborhood or to people around you. And by throwing the ball back into the consumer's court, we were able to create a huge amount of chatter in the community about this. And we only produced one 3-minute video. So, and then it had a lot of impact because just like Thad said, people are like, I've never really got to be the hands and feet of the church. I always kind of watched other people at church do that. But then when they could realize they could do that, it was really amazing. And the stories that we got come back, we're now able to feature those in our streams because suddenly I have stories, and we all know in advertising, story is king. And so when I have all these stories flooding in, I'm able to feature them in my live stream, which makes more people go, hey, I can be like that guy. And so it's been well for us by doing that.
Yeah. Go ahead. You go ahead.
I was just going to say that church that I mentioned that was celebrating their 1-year anniversary had people record little happy birthday, the journey, and that stuff, isn't produced at all. Or even the video that, Carl, that you're giving away in this chat, is shot on phones, and it's very authentic. And I think there's a level of connection that you feel, because when you see something that's highly produced, it's almost like you're watching a TV show already in progress or whatever. And the other stuff tends to feel a little more authentic. I also think that when you're scrolling through your timeline and you see somebody talking to the camera, you're more likely to think, oh, what's my friend, what's Adam talking about right now? You're more likely to want to tune in and hear what they're saying versus seeing something that looks like a program already in progress. And I'm a media producer too, so I love highly polished content, but for me anyway, I'm a little bit more drawn to the stuff right now that feels like it's happening in the moment, which is not to say I don't appreciate the other stuff.
What the one thing that's really interesting is a little behind the scenes thing. So when we were producing this We Are the Church video, I asked Jason to send in a video, and you were recording on your nice backdrop. And when we were putting the video together, we're like, that doesn't fit, man, because everybody else is in their living room. Hey, will you reshoot this? And he reshot something in his living room or something. So even us, it's like, this doesn't feel authentic.
Well, yeah. And when you asked me to do it, I had some other promo thing I had to record for a webinar I was doing. So I did it on the same backdrop and recorded the whole thing. And I think I even mentioned when I sent it to you, I'm like, if this isn't right, let me know. Yeah. So I was like, do you want me to hold my camera? Do you want it to be on a tripod? You're like, no, just shoot it with your, and it was way more authentic that way than it would have been to have a really highly produced thing in the midst of all those other shots that felt really organic in that moment.
Yeah, I would say with that too, the video is not important, but the audio still is. So you can take bad video, good audio. You cannot take bad audio, good video. That makes sense.
Yeah, Dave Dolphin, I saw you shot your hand up there. Did you have some thoughts to chime in on that one?
Yeah, one of the ideas that I had, me and our media producer, it's funny. Everyone keeps talking about this extra time they have in their hands, and I can't find it. I've not seen it in the last 6 or 7 weeks because we haven't offered any kind of live stream. We don't have the ability to live stream, so our ability to do a service is all pre-produced, and so it's you shoot worship days, and from Wednesday to Sunday it's a mad rush. This is kind of the breather time, and so a lot of our time there, I'd love to be able to do clip and do different things. I still have, we don't have the time because we're focused on this main thing. However, our kids ministry, because he's got a ton of time on his hands right now, he's been doing like these weekly quarantine challenges. He throws it out and says, hey, families get together and post a picture of this. Or like last week it was do a lip sync challenge, and people were, pick a song and get your family involved. The more people, the merrier, and post it. And there, and he's giving away small little prizes and things like that. And so we've seen a lot of success in that regard. Another thing I saw was there's a guy named, I think his name's Kyle O'Neill, and he's a worship pastor at one of the Life churches in the Wichita area. And he just, because he's got nothing else really going on, because he's at Life Church, and, a lot of those worship pastors are just kind of, not doing anything in their local, because you got the main live coming out of Edmond, Oklahoma. He's been doing like this Sunday night, like live stream show where it's just him, and it looks like he's in a closet or something like that. And he just, because he knows a lot of different, artists, like last night he had Dylan Chase, who's a local rapper, and they just been doing, like these little shows where they interview and talk and show music and stuff like that. And he had a good little following that was happening on that. So I don't know, just, again, speaking to the whole, it doesn't have to be super polished. I create content for YouTube for other reasons outside of the church. And I kind of got into last year or so, got into a thing where like, man, I had to have my script ready and my set ready. And, and it had to be like, a certain way. And I noticed the engagement was dipping. And then through all this, because it had to be, I just grabbed my phone and said, hey, I'm showing you something really fast, which is actually kind of reminiscent of some of the old content that I used to make like years and years ago, where it was just like, I'm throwing my phone up and I'm walking you around, and I've seen more engagement on that than I have where I really had to have my script dialed in and my set dialed in. And so I don't know, there's just something about, I mean, we know this, but it's like, I know this, but I even fell into the trap of like, it's got to be a certain way. And man, everyone's BS meter is just so highly, really tuned, and they just want to know that it's real.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of churches utilize their pre-show and even their countdown to put in, even I've seen it even in worship experiences, like they'll do a worship set and then the pastor will speak or something, and then they'll go to like this random maybe montage of nurses on their iPhone just thanking the church for their prayers. Or like I've seen like kids doing recipes, like little 1 minute, like here's how you make guacamole. Like I've seen people put that in their pre-show and in their countdown. It's just a fun, family activity, humor, stuff like that. It really does make it authentic.
And the good news about this is that if your church does not have a video team on staff, you can utilize everybody's in your church, most of them at home, most of them have a phone. It's probably an understatement. And so what if you utilize user-generated content? And not only can you take, a picture of, or can you take a video of your kid making guacamole and send it to us and we'll use it, but how can you then empower the people in your church to do like, what John Mark said with that hashtag Show Hope eTown, and then allow them to use their own social media. So it's their friends, it's their family members, it's their neighbors, it's their coworkers that see the hashtag that you're driving. I'm wondering if anybody else who maybe is in a church that is in a position that doesn't have a video team or doesn't have staff members to do that, could one of those churches chime in? Have you seen any success with getting people to use a similar topic or a similar idea on their own social?
Jennifer, I hate to call on you, but I'd love to hear from you. Where are you at, and do you have any thoughts on that? Oh, I think you're okay. It's okay. Anybody else want to chime in? We'll read your response in the comments, Jennifer.
One thing you might consider is if you don't have the ability to produce, you can jump on a Zoom call, and if you have it in speaker view and record your screen, you can allow that to be your edit, so practice 4 or 5 times, send the script out to everybody, You know, everybody can have their thing. Zoom will go to whoever's talking when it detects them, and to record that. And that's a really quick, low tech, low production value way of doing something where you involve a whole lot of people in the same conversation.
Yeah. All right. Let me go ahead.
Jump in. I think the reason maybe why we're seeing so much like traction on the stuff that's not highly produced is because like the majority of the people in our churches are at home, stuck in their houses, and they don't feel connected to like what's happening on Sunday. So I wonder if like the reason that we've seen virtual choir videos and videos with pastors at home and stuff, and people sending in content, you know, about like what they're doing on their block, reaching their neighbors, is it's giving them an opportunity to connect to what's happening on a Sunday. So if your service is highly produced with 5 people on screen and the 5 production people, that's only 10 people out of your church that are actually involved. Everyone else feels disconnected to what's happening. But if there's a way you can include people from their homes on their iPhones, then they feel like, man, this is still my church. I'm still part of it. For it.
Jennifer, do we have your audio now?
Yeah, I think so. My computer like crashed 6 minutes in, and I've only been listening.
Oh.
So Nikki and I work together. We're in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Awesome.
But this is my first time meeting with you all, so it's just been very informative. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Is there anything that we can help you with? Do you have any questions that you're wrestling with?
I came on for the How Are You Reopening? I'm the administrator, but it's been very helpful in hearing what you all are doing as far as communication, so I'll know that what my team needs as far as equipment and budget and things like that moving forward. So having those ideas has been great.
What is your church plan to reopen?
We are still on a stay-at-home order through May 8th, and then the order becomes modified. And so then after that, we will probably stay closed. We've not made any decisions yet because it's just a modified stay-at-home order, but we're going to use that time to kind of put our plans together. Our county hasn't come out with additional guidelines, so we'll need to follow. If their guidelines are stricter, we'll need to follow that. But I have a feeling we'll unfortunately look to Georgia to see kind of what's happening with them, because they're going to open much sooner than we will. And I hate to say it today. Someone in our staff meeting, I think it was our pastor, used the example of, penguins push one off into the water to see if there are any whales around. And so if you're in Georgia, I'm sorry, but we're probably going to use you as
guinea pig. Well, at least we can get tattoos in Georgia. That's all we care about is when can you get your tattoo and your nails done, right? Joe, you have something?
Yeah, I'm the pastor at Sardis Presbyterian, where Nikki and Jennifer work, and joined in really just to get smarter from hearing all the things that you have to say, interested in the topics that you listed, and always proud of the work that Nikki does for us. I wanted to throw in a word of thanks for all of the work that all of you do for your churches and the collaboration that you're putting together at this. I can see ways that we've been better at things that we've done and ways that we can get better. It's helpful for me to hear how you think, and I hope that the people whose faces are on the screens at your churches are listening to you. Hearing this helps me think about content in ways that make your job easier. And thank you for what you're doing. We'll notice that we've been pre-recording our services for the last several weeks. We were live the first couple weeks and then got knocked off Facebook one Sunday, and so we weren't going to risk that again. In the last couple of weeks, we've been getting members to pre-record at home our call to worship and certain other elements of the service, the scripture reading, and that has had the effect that someone was talking about, where people say, "Oh, now it looks like my church," and not just the people that we hire to be there. Our challenge is we're a 230-year-old church that is very traditional in lots of ways, and we're challenged with teaching a bunch of church ladies how to Zoom, and the work that you do and the way that you do it has made it accessible to them, and you're doing great stuff for the kingdom. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Awesome. We have about 10 minutes or so before we kind of wrap up. One thing I'd love to know, and Adam, feel free to jump in here. Who's at a church with under, let's say, 500 people on a regular Sunday? Any like kind of smaller churches? Okay. Um, how about over 1,000? Okay. So, all right. So about half and half. Adam, you want to speak to? I know we put this topic in the group. Do you want to speak to some communication strategies for smaller churches?
So I've had this idea, and I think it'll work for any size church. But specifically, I think it's a great tool for a smaller church. And also, I think it would be like, fuel to the fire for a smaller church in a smaller community. So if that's kind of your combination, there are businesses right now that are available to do business, restaurants, takeout places, those places. What if you were to drive by, take a picture with your phone, and let people on your social media know that those businesses are open, like do a business highlight. And then a further step to that could be to say to that pizza place, listen, if somebody comes to you this Friday night and says, I saw your picture on the church social media, would you be willing to give $1 to United Way or someone, Red Cross, or someone that's helping specifically with COVID, right? So now you could drive up, take a picture with your phone. If you want to do a better quality, your photographer, you take a higher quality picture, and then post on your social media and say, hey, listen, go visit this pizza place. Maybe it's Thursday night because they're already busy Fridays and Saturdays, but Tuesday night, Thursday night. Visit this pizza place on Tuesday night. Let them know you saw their picture on our social media channel, and they'll give $1 to fight COVID, or to help the community, or to do face masks for hospitals, or whatever that might look like. And so that doesn't take a team. That literally takes you posting a picture to Facebook, and maybe a phone call or something to get their permission, or see if they'll do some kind of partnership. And even if they won't, even if you just say, hey, today's business highlight is Pete's Pizza Place, nobody's going to be upset at Pete's Pizza Place that you drove business to them. And also, Pete's Pizza Place is going to learn about your church and what you're doing in the community. So that was just a quick thought I had, but I would love to hear if anybody else has some ideas that they've seen success with.
That's a really cool idea. I just wanted to comment on that. I'm typing an email to my pastor right now to suggest that we do that.
Yep. It's a great idea, Adam.
We found here, to piggyback on that, we did a concept like that we do each week, where we're having people, there's a lot of negativity around, people are becoming very anxious, we find that people don't have a lot of patience, and so we've just found ways to share just fruits of the Spirit. Today, how can you be patient? How have you shown patience? Let's share good news today. Like last week, we did a share good news post. We wanted to good news, and people blew up just sharing. We also did like, hey, tag, hey, we appreciate those your local businesses. And so we want to make sure that we're blessing them and also being the church to them and supporting them in this season. And so we told people, hey, tag your local post. It went out to a local community and it just went viral. And so we found that people, as we're doing people checking in, how did you hear about us? A lot of people are hearing about what we're doing external versus what we've just been focusing in internally with just our church communication.
Awesome. Anybody
That's
else?
so cool. A lot of
Okay.
churches, when I stalk social media, and I quite literally mean when I stalk their social media, I follow along and I poke around and I go back a month and I see what they've posted over the month. And a lot of churches, if they were people, would be so narcissistic, they would have no followers. So what is your church doing to not be about watch our stream, join us, sign up for our email, get on our Zoom call? What is your church doing to be community focused and intentionally serving in your community?
I know we've been feeding all the nurses at the local hospitals. Chick-fil-A, we have both the Chick-fil-A operators at our church, thankfully, which is like the greatest thing that can ever happen to a ministry. So we've been able to use that connection and serve our local our local nurses at our hospital, Chick-fil-A, and stuff like that. And we've been, just trying to do stuff like that. But your idea about the restaurants, I literally just sent an email to our pastor. We're doing that today. That's awesome.
Yeah,
so,
good idea.
Cool stuff.
All right.
We've been doing a lot, like the making the masks. We partner with a local school, and we provide throughout the year. Normally, we provide them with a backpack for the weekend with food. But one of our worries was them not being in school and not having that access to food. And so we've been able to get a lot of members involved in donations of food or money so we can buy the food for them. So we've been able to provide those families with food. Those families, we've been able to, I think I just got an email saying that one of our members just dropped off 120 masks to those families.
That's awesome.
So yeah, so far we've donated to like 200 masks for them, and we're just trying to really stay within our, really build up our local community and make sure that our members are feeling like they're involved and they're helping. Because the first thing when this happened was, how can we help? And that's so them. So we've been trying to be able to create those opportunities and look for opportunities in our community. The restaurant idea is pretty cool.
Yeah. All right, one last topic as we close. I want to jump back into the actual worship experience and talk about ideas to turn greeters into chatters. So a couple ideas here, and then I would love you guys to chime in. So one thing that is a great advantage, I think we've talked about this in some of the roundtables, but to put your pastor in the chat, even the pastor that is preaching at that time, to put him in the chat, and also to turn your hospitality team or your guest services team into an online army, an online hospitality team. Put them in the chat. So that's a good team to go to. Parking greeters, door greeters, any bulletin handout people, like all of those people are great to put in the chat. And what you guys have probably noticed is over the last few weeks, I've grabbed a friend of mine and said, hey, come help lead the conversation with me. So whether that's Justin or Adam or Ben Stapley or Luke McElroy, who's, the last few weeks, I've just said, hey, come help me lead the conversation in here. So maybe you can do that in your worship experience as well. So maybe take the lead of your hospitality team and get a few people and just help within the chat. Just, hey guys, where are you watching from? Hey guys, what'd you think about that point that Pastor Joe just made? Man, that was awesome. Here's a verse, here's a resource, here's a whatever, just kind of helping with the conversation. So let me throw that out. How have you guys turned your pastors or your greeters into chatters? How do you interact with people in the chat?
I'm gonna ask a dumb question on that because we did that the first week and it was a train wreck because we had way too many people trying to ask where people were from and all of that. And so we've gone from a team of like 5 down to a team of 1 because they were able to do the hello, how you doing, even though we're averaging around 500 people watching. So if I did want to enable that massive, we probably have 30 volunteers in that team of, greeters on a Sunday morning. What are some good things for them to engage on? Like, how can I empower them so that they're not just like, where are you from? It's like, okay, 5 people have asked me that now,
Is that coming from the hospitality team or is that coming from random people who've just taken the lead and trying to help?
The train wreck was when we intentionally said, hey, can you be a virtual greeter now? Okay. They were just too ambitious. And so we had to, that's actually back to just a staff member now. But
so
I would like to enable those volunteers because they want to do something.
I would say this is just an idea. I would put a Google document together, and I would have a list of questions. Okay, this is how we're going to go today. Okay, so you can either assign the questions to people, or you could but have a document that everybody's going on, and just be intentional about leading them to say, hey, we're only going to ask one time where people are watching from. Like, once it's asked, it's asked. Then we're going to move to this. Then we're going to kind of move to this, so that everybody has a guideline of, they might help with the conversation, but you've given them now a roadmap to use. So maybe I'm not going to say go away from the idea, because I think the idea still stands, and I think you could leverage your team. I would say be more intentional about it and lean into giving them direction. What do you guys think?
It might also be less of, could we have a team of people ready to comment, so that every time somebody joins, we say, hey, where are you watching from? And maybe it's more like, at the beginning of the service, whoever's hosting is holding up a coffee, right? And the two people there are each holding up a coffee, and one of them drinks their coffee black, and one of them drinks their coffee with cream and sugar. And now we ask our viewers, how do you take your coffee? And the guest services team is the first one ready to respond to that question, to kind of break the ice for the rest of the viewers to respond. Maybe, like, I know that sermons in person are very, I'm going to say broadcast driven, but the person at the front holding the microphone says something, and people respond with, like, a yes or amen, or depending on your culture, but it's not usually as much of a conversation. I think when we move to live broadcast, pastors, when you're creating your notes, think about, like, how could I turn this into a question people could comment on? And then your greeters jump in and say, blah, 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 blah. And it might be, we've highlighted 3 tips about parenting. What's your tip that I didn't get to? And then your greeters get in and comment on that question, kind of to break the ice. But I would say that instead of just them trying to create the conversation, the broadcast creates the conversation, but they're ready to jump in right away.
One idea you might try to use is a polling idea, and have your host or your hospitality team do polls. And I know that several, Justin, does Vimeo do polling?
Yeah, we have a live polling feature in our live feed. So when you're logged into your Vimeo account and you have a stream going, you just push the live poll. You put, here's the question, here are the 2 answers, boom, and it fires up inside the player. So yeah, that's something that we put in just for that. So
cool. And I'm going to go back to our example. There are 4 guys in here: Adam, me, Steve, and Justin, that have all that are in here nearly every week. Me, Steve, and Justin definitely. But that's kind of our goal in this Zoom call, is to get the conversation going, is to, let me speak up when no one else has anything, just to move the conversation along. So maybe you can, that's what we're doing in here. So I wonder if you can translate that idea to your chat room, and just have your hospitality team be the, if your pastor asks a question in the live stream, have your hospitality team be the ones that answer that question, to just get everybody going. Does that help you, John Mark? Cool.
Yeah, phrasing it as an icebreaker, that's a great way that I can communicate with that team on how to participate.
Yeah. All right. As we close today, is there anything else that's kind of burning within you or your church that you would love somebody to speak into, or you might have a question about?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
One of the things that we have struggled with now that we're not like broadcasting live, since we had that issue with Facebook, we've struggled with whether or not we still want to do like a Facebook premiere or a watch party or just whatever it is, because we're worried about excluding people who don't have that ability to do that versus. And so what we've done for a few weeks has just been posting the video and then just letting people comment in the comment section. But do you all ever run into that dilemma of, what do you do for the people who maybe don't have access to the platform you're using?
Adam, Justin, you guys want to speak to that?
Yeah, I think that's why, especially like with, I hate to like shamelessly plug Vimeo. Well, I say that, but then I do have a logo behind my face. So, but yeah, that's why it's so important in our vision, and I guess in my vision as kind of like a streaming expert, to simulcast everywhere that you possibly can. So like, for instance, when you stream with Vimeo, you can send it to Vimeo. We give you an embedded player for your website. It'll go to up to 50 Facebook pages. It can go to YouTube Live, and it can also throw to any RTMP feed you want, so Twitch, Periscope. So really, you're everywhere. So no matter if, my grandma's 85 and she watches our services, because I email her the YouTube link, and she's able to watch it on her iPhone. So it's making sure you're everywhere that anyone wants to interact, so you don't miss anybody.
And also, I think you mentioned it, but just embedding it on your website. So like, I think a lot of discussion has been having a landing page on your website, because if someone doesn't have a YouTube account, or they don't have the app, they don't have Facebook, if you have it on your website, people can go to their browser and type in your website. And that's why Carl actually this past week released a church online tip about having it at the front of your page, an easy, watch live button, so that people can go to your website, hit watch live, and be directed right to it. So Vimeo has that ability to embed that stream onto your website as well, wherever you place that.
And so if you do it in multiple places, like let's say you do it on Facebook and you do it on YouTube, do you have multiple greeters in both platforms to like answer to engage the way you were speaking of earlier?
Does freeonlinechurch.com, does that pull in your, like, if you comment there, does it go to your Facebook comment section?
There's a chat feature on it, like Church Online platforms.
Right, but that stays on that page.
Yeah.
It's not hitting your Facebook.
So this is where you can start to bring in a massive amount of volunteers to help you. Like you can have a team for each platform you're streaming to. So Facebook, YouTube, you'll have a team for each one, and Church Online or Free Church Online, whatever platform you're using for your stream on your website, you can do that.
Yeah, I was going to bring that back around to what John was talking about earlier. He said he had a ton of people, moderators and stuff, put, 2 on YouTube, 2 on Facebook, 2 on the website. There you go. Then it's kind of evenly spread out. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Does that make sense, Jennifer?
It does. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anybody else before we kind of close out? Anybody got a question that's burning?
Carl, I got a quick question. Do you guys have a resource that kind of speaks into, like, what are the analytics and numbers that are important? Like, how do you know if you're doing this right?
Great question. Justin, do you want to hit on that?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. The only true analytics that we lean on are analytics of people who watch on the website. Everything else is sky high and kind of ridiculous. Like Facebook's analytics are for 3-second view, which could literally be just like scrolling through. That's why churches always get disappointed. They come to stream with me and they're like, hey, I've got like 6,000 people who watch my video on Sunday, and then they have 50 people on their website. And I was like, well, those are 50 real people. So I don't really know how to gauge, like, if you're doing it right or not. I think, to me, it's always been more about the engagement than the views. I'd rather have 20 people who are chatting in the chat boxes than have 500 people watching, and I have no idea who they are or why they're watching. So I think it's more of the chat engagement, kind of tagging back onto what we've been talking about. To me, is the most important analytic. But the only analytic you can really lean on is true analytics on your web embedded stream. All the others are skewed and kind of crazy.
Sorry, I don't know if that really.
Can I jump in here too?
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
So the first thing on analytics is, you cannot compare. There's nothing about the online experience that you can compare to the in-room. Like if you normally have 350 people in the room, there's nothing you can do that can, like, you're comparing apples and oranges. And so at the very least, you can at least compare, you can compete with yourself. And like, what was this week versus last week? I've been looking at the peak number both on YouTube and on Facebook, which tells you like the largest number of people that were watching at any given moment. And as long as I compare that to last week and the week beforehand, that gives me something. I mean, Justin's right. Like if you sneeze in the wrong direction, Facebook counts it as a view, and that's not useful. I mean, that's literally, the 3-second views is like someone drove by your church and saw the sign, and that's not really helpful at all. I look when it comes to YouTube, I'll look at like watch time, how many hours spent, because that will tell you, based on not only how many people watch, but how many people watched, the more that they watched it, the higher that number is going to be. So watch time, whether that's in minutes or in hours, is a really, really big one. And then Justin's right. Like engagement is huge. You want people commenting and sharing and hearting and all of those different things. So those are the numbers that we have been watching. We mainly been using the Premiere feature and sending it out to Facebook and YouTube at the same time. And those are the numbers that we've been using to kind of like try to figure out. And the idea is too, is like, I might have, 100 people watching on a YouTube stream. That doesn't necessarily mean it's 100 people, because you could have one player up on your YouTube on the TV screen in your living room, and there's 5 people watching it. So that one view counts as 5. But then there's a family like mine where it's me and my wife and my 3 kids. And I've got my laptop open, I've got the TV, the Apple TV going, and every single one of my family members has it on their phone, whether it's a YouTube account or whatever. It's like my family of 5 counts as 7 taps. And so we kind of look at it and say, you know what, if there's 150 people at the max, we had 150 people in here, multiply that by 2, maybe it was 300. And that's the best guess that I can come from. But as long as you compare, you compete with yourself, and use your numbers, that tells you if you're trending, up or down.
Joe had a cool comment in the chat. Joe, would you mind saying what you said in the chat so everybody hears it? That's actually really smart.
So less about, one, we were concerned with trying to figure out, okay, how do we gauge attendance numbers? Not that that's the end all success metric for a church, but how do we do that? And more importantly, how do we make sure we're checking in with everybody and making sure everybody's okay? And so we started asking people to, when they sign in, when they get on, say, good morning, all 4 Andersons are watching, or Jim and Becky Smith are watching. And then we have a church administrator who goes through and reads through all the chat things and during the week and records everybody's attendance, so we know which particular people were there. It doesn't give us an accurate number of everyone who's watching, because non-members are unlikely to do that. But it does give us a week-to-week understanding. As the member number may go up or down from week to week, we can at least see the dynamics as the movement goes. That's worked pretty well, I think, for the last few weeks. I worried when you were talking about using multiple platforms everywhere, then that becomes harder. And you also lose when the members announce that they're there and who's there with them, it creates some conversation between members that we would lose if they were not in the same place. And I feel like that's what they're looking for, the together part.
So I want to jump on that idea. If I could add one tip, Carl, I know you're probably ready to sign off, but I've got nothing else to do today. So I'm here for the long haul. But
I just want to respect people's time. Go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. The quick tip would be that the default mode on Facebook is that thumbs up icon. So if you say to people, like, if you're here, Facebook says, oh, great, they're engaging. But if you get somebody to use an icon other than the like, then Facebook goes, oh, wait a second, they took an extra step. They must really love engaging. So, if you can't do a Facebook poll or you're specifically on Facebook, if you say, hey, if you're watching on your phone, then heart this. And if you're watching on a laptop or a desktop, then use one of the other icons, like maybe that's the smiley face. So now you get all these people who are using all the extra icons besides just the like. And then of course the better step from that is the comment. So Joe, I love your idea. Like, hey, let us know who is watching, right? Because taking the time to write out a comment, Facebook attributes more engagement to that. And the benefit of the higher engagement is that more people in your community and the organic reach of your broadcast then is expanded. Facebook goes, okay, well, you know, Sally's really enjoying this because she's commenting. Maybe we'll show it to Sally's friend. Maybe we'll show it to Sally's neighbor. Maybe we'll show it to Sally's sister. So yeah, that's a really great idea to create those, you know, tell us who you're watching or tell us who's watching in the comments.
Another way to just kind of, if you're not on Facebook and can't do that, or maybe in conjunction with doing what Adam just said too, you could, if you're using a service like Text in Church or an e-card service, you can have both your members, you could have like a connection for your members to say, hey, just let us know you were here today so we can, you know, mark you or connect with you this week. And then people that are new, you know, a guest link, and you could just highlight that in your message somehow. My church has like, you know, a specific time where a pastor comes on and just says, hey, for those of you who are guests, we'd love for you to text this short code number and we'll get in touch with you this week. And you could add that for even taking attendance, and it would be automated, have more easily automated on the back end, so you wouldn't have to go through Facebook and try to figure out who commented and all that. It could be an option too.
Cool. All right, well, we're going to wrap things up, and I put my contact information in the chat. Adam, Justin, why don't you guys do the same? And you guys feel free to reach out to us this week if you need anything at all. Like, even if you think it's a dumb question, like, reach out and ask, because somebody's asking it. So we're here for you. If we can do anything for you, let us know. And I'm going to pray for us, and then we'll let you guys go. Lord, thank you so much again for this time that we can hang out. Lord, thank you for just the body of Christ, that we have the technology to meet wherever we are in the country and around the world. Think of guys like Sam, who are ministering in a whole different country around the world, that we can get together and hang out and see what you're doing around the world. So, Lord, I just again pray for wisdom for us, for our leadership at our churches, that we'll know when to reopen and in what steps, and then how to engage people most effectively online. And we know that it's about people coming to know you and growing in their walk with you. So we know that it's about loving you and loving people. So I just pray that you give us wisdom to do that. We love you. Thank you for this time. Amen. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next Monday. Feel free to reach out if you need anything at all this week. Have a great week, guys.